Okay, welcome back. We have done a lot of podcasts, and to be honest, I did those podcasts probably about a year ago as of right now. And I've been through those, and those pretty much are what they are. I'm not going to do a lot of editing on those. I apologize for all the ums and ahs. That's just kind of what I do. But in this particular section, I want to get away from teaching you the knowledge you've got to have and actually get down to the nitty-gritty of how to run your home inspector business, how to market it, how to make sure that it succeeds. And there's a lot more to running a successful home inspection business than simply knowing home inspection data. So we're going to go over that. This section, everything that I'm doing in video is all about how to succeed as a home inspector and how to get out there, how to be known, etc. So I have made a list based on what has worked and what has not worked for me over almost 25 years now, and we're going to go over that. So, and I want to make sure that you get the first and most important thing you can do. You can market, and advertise and tell everybody you're great and have this amazing phone sales pitch, or you can just do really good inspections and have people refer their friends to you and they call you up and you don't have to do a sales pitch. And the more you get into it, the more you realize that that's awesome. But we've been down that road in the podcast. But I want to make sure you understand that that's priority number one. And all the rest of the stuff I'm handing you is second place. So one of the things that I learned a number of years ago is that realtors appreciate being fed in pretty much any way. You go to their sales meetings and the people who show up and do presentations will bring, donuts are kind of a cheap second class sort of a thing. Most of them would rather eat healthy. So in my case, I didn't bring them anything healthy, but I brought something that they could have any part of the day. So I would bring candy. Sometimes it was those jars of Twizzlers that you get at Costco. Sometimes it was a different sort of cheap candy, maybe the mixture that had suckers and Tootsie Rolls and those sorts of things. You can get those relatively cheap at places like Costco. And you bring those in there with a sign that says, "This candy brought to you by blah, 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 name of the agent." And then you make that sign so that you can write in their name in, with an erasable marker. And this, of course, is after you've gotten one person in that office to agree to go with you. So once they've done that, you bring in the candy, you do the marker. It says, "This candy brought to you by Joe Jones, who has done an inspection with me." And then at the bottom it says, "Ask Joe Jones how we did as an inspector." I quickly took over a couple of real estate offices in my day. And then, of course, when Jane Jones or somebody else in that office calls you and tries you, then you put your name on there. And of course, or you put her name on there. And you build to where everybody in that office pretty much has used you. They know what your brand is, they know how you do it, and now all of a sudden you own that office. And you literally do own that office, and that's if you don't suck as a home inspector. So, and we'll go over some of the things like that. But that is one very good way to completely dominate the market. Now it is annoying because those bags of candy are about, I'm going to say about $8, $9 a piece, and it is painful to keep buying those, and you wonder if it's making any difference, and trust me, it did. The reason why I know this is because I actually got to the point where 80 to 90% of my business was coming from these two real estate offices. And this compares to, I serve a radius of about 30 miles, but I had so much business in these two offices that I thought, wow, if anything goes wrong, I am really hosed. I've got to diversify my clientele. And whether this was a good decision or not, I'm not going to go into that. Probably wasn't, but it scared me enough that I decided that I was going to stop doing candy to those offices and just let the diversification happen naturally. That didn't work so well because, well, actually it kind of did what I wanted it to do. I stopped getting business in anywhere near that kind of volume from those two offices. And yes, I did diversify, and I never starved to death, and I'm doing quite well. So I guess on that basis you could say it succeeded, but the amount of business from those two offices dropped over a number of years, probably 70%. So yeah, it makes a huge difference. And so if you look at the investment it takes, you know, it might be, I don't know, $40 a month per office to keep candy in there, and then you got to go in about once a week to refill. That has its own advantages, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you know, you can see where that quickly stacks up, and you're spending a lot of money. But if you're getting extra inspections at say $400 a piece, you can see where that's a very good investment. So the candy option is a really good one. Another reason why it's really good is it forces you to put your face and your butt inside that office, which is probably the more important thing. Realtors will call the people that they trust, who they have a relationship with, and if you're in there and you're having conversations, you know, what you can't do is just drag the bag of candy and walk past a bunch of people and don't say anything to them, fill the candy and leave. You know, that's going to be a waste of time and money, and you know, it's not going to buy you any business. But if you go in there, you drop the candy, you look around, see who's available to talk to, make sure they're willing to talk to you. You know, don't force yourself on people. But you know, that's a very good way to do it. And it's probably my #1 recommendation. So the candy is really about the candy and making sure that you know, another one of the key concepts here is no realtor wants to bet their monthly paycheck on you not sucking. So they want somebody else to try you first. And that's kind of what the candy does, is you've got the sign beneath it that says, hey, Fred Johnson has already tried me. Go ask Fred how I did. And if they go over, and if you were respectful and knowledgeable and you provided a report and you weren't arrogant and all those sorts of things, then they're going to say, okay, I will try you. Now you've got two, and now it's that much easier for a realtor, you know, the next realtor to give you a try. And again, that's how you dominate that particular office. So another thing I want you to have very clear in mind is know the value of a customer. Now, there are a couple of different kinds of customers that you have in this business. You have the realtor who's a customer, and you have the home buyer who is a customer. And they actually have, in many cases, competing needs. The realtor wants, you know, depending on who the realtor is, the realtor may want you to give it to them straight, but not so straight that you end up losing the deal. You know, a lot of good realtors are okay with losing the deal as long as the deal really needs to be killed. But if you start and this is as judged by the realtor, if you start willy-nilly killing deals that didn't need to be killed, you just killed yourself. Basically, you just executed yourself as a home inspector, not only for this realtor, but for everybody else that they talk to. So if you know the value of your customer, let's say, for example, in my area, I generally charge about $400 a month, and it's easy math, or $400 an inspection. And it's easy math, so we'll go with that. So let's say that there's a particular realtor. Maybe he sells once per month, and he calls me. He says, you know, call this guy. And so that $400 a month, once a month, is going to be, you know, $4,800 a year. And every 2 years, that's $10,000. Now, let's say that I have a good relationship with this realtor, and he keeps going for, let's say, 10 years. You know, that's a $48,000 customer, just him. And now let's say that he is in an office where he's surrounded by other realtors and he's liable to refer them. Now this $48,000 customer might have gone to a value of $250,000 or more. And now let's say that all the people that you did inspections for, who this realtor referred you to, they remember your name, and 5 and 10 years from now they move again and they say, who was that inspector who was so awesome? Now they're calling you. So that original agent, you think that inspection was worth $400. I mean, it could literally be worth 6 figures. And you've got to treat your clients that way. If they want something weird and stupid, the default is to do whatever that may be, as long as it doesn't cause other problems. For example, if they want you to get on an icy roof, even if the whole thing is worth $100,000, you don't want to die. You don't want to break your leg. You don't want to, do anything like that. Your wife needs you, or whatever. You've got to weigh all that in. But be aware that even the most basic of needs, even just to show back up later, maybe because the roof was icy one day and a week later it's not icy, you don't always have to be a pirate and need extra money for that. Sometimes you just do it so that you can be impressive to the client, whoever that client may be, whether it's a realtor, whether it's a home buyer. It's very helpful to be impressive. You never know what little story might get passed around the office, and then you become the hero, and again, that starts to become worth a whole lot of money. Another thing I found, and I tried training realtors a number of different ways, and what I found is that generally contractors already think that they know it all, and the fact is they don't. I had one of them that I brought in, and he only wanted to be trained for a couple of inspections, and he started having issues over landscaping in the front yard where there was a rock that was a little high. He says, that's a trip risk, and I kind of blew it off, and he said, that's a trip risk. He wanted me to write that up, and I was out in the middle of the yard, and it just wasn't that big a deal. There's rocks and yards. So what I'm getting to is, if you are that contractor that's converting yourself into a home inspector, don't start out thinking you know it all, and by all means don't be arrogant. Another one of the contractors that I tried to train is, I sent him out on a job after we'd done a few together, and he went through. At the end, the buyer wanted an opinion as to the quality of the house. And the guy, what he said was, well, it sucks by my standards, but the house is okay. And then he said something about, don't tell your agent, And so that completely blew up. Now what my inspector was trying to say is, I'm cool, I do the coolest house ever, and this is substandard by me, because if you would have hired me to build, then it would be awesome. But what the client heard is, this house sucks. And so now, because of what my trainee inspector said, now they don't trust anybody. They don't trust their realtor, they don't trust me, the home inspector's boss, if you will, because they didn't meet me there, and they just are pissed off at everybody, and they don't know who to trust, and the deal went south. And I probably lost that realtor and the tens of thousands of dollars that realtor was worth, because I sent out this arrogant inspector who was an idiot. So don't do that. It's not about you. It's not how cool you are. It's not how well you build. It's not about any of that at all. It's about first the buyer and second the house. By the way, if you're expecting or wanting to be on the home medic inspector team, and you make it about you and you start acting like some of the inspectors, I'm going to out and out name them. I don't know if you've ever seen Holmes Inspection, but that entire show, he calls himself a home inspector, but the entire show is about how cool this Holmes guy is. And there is really, you think it's about home inspection and you can learn something. I've got a brother-in-law that watches it religiously, but I don't know why, because there is I've tried to force myself to sit through a couple of those half-hour episodes, but you don't learn a thing other than Holmes guy shows up, he says everything's awful, and he fixes everything, and then at the end, the homeowner says, "Oh, Mike Holmes is awesome," and yay for Mike Holmes, he's a hero. But there was absolutely no value gained in watching the show. If you make it about you, people pick that up pretty quickly. Nobody wants to hire a guy and pay a guy $400 to spend 2 hours telling you how awesome they are. That's just, nobody wants to do that. People don't care how awesome you think you are. The more you try to convince them how awesome you are, the more you suck. And I don't want to deal with you either. Now, presentations to realtors. That helps a lot. There are sales meetings, and those around here generally will happen on Tuesday mornings. If you call the broker and get yourself on the schedule, usually they'll allow you to put your face in front of the realtors and explain to them why they want to use you. That has, it works, it's worth doing, but it should not be your entire marketing plan. It's helpful to do that after you can get some realtor in that office to use you. And hopefully after they have used you, they have something positive to report. When you've got that, the presentations to the realtors is a whole lot easier. CE classes, continuing education classes, and those are also very helpful. Realtors they need 18 hours every 2 years. And so if you can provide that, that is motivation for a realtor to show up to your class. And then you get them for an entire hour or maybe 3, however long the class is. By comparison, if you're doing a presentation at the brokerage house, they will give you generally no longer than about 5 minutes, and you better have a 2 or 3 minute presentation to make. By the way, again, listening in even those 2 or 3 minute presentations, you'll get a lot more interest if you listen more than speak. So rather than say, my name is, my business is, we're awesome, rah, 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 use us. They've heard that. They've heard that 52 times a week or a year, every week of the year. They've heard that. You're not interesting. By contrast, if you do something that is a little bit more unique, like ask them, what makes a great home inspector for you guys? And then you actually have them come to you. Now you've got some interest. Okay, another thing that I have done successfully in offices where I didn't have a single agent is I would actually do a free inspection. So the idea actually came from a tanning business that we owned where we would do the first tan free. And it actually worked spectacularly well because people would come for the free tan, see that we had an awesome tanning salon, and keep coming. And so I decided to try the same thing with my home inspection business. It worked out nicely because I would give that free inspection card to the very best agent that was in that brokerage. And the way it turned out is I had my brand proper, and that realtor who was highly respected by everybody in the office, that realtor decided I was awesome, and she just kept using me. And again, being the most successful realtor in that office, she held some sway with the others. So, after doing that first tan free card with her, I told her to give it to one of her friend realtors. And so that's a way that I was able to break into a new brokerage where I had previously been an unknown commodity. So that's a way to get started, and then the candy jar can be a way to get further in. Social media, everybody's going to tell you social media, get a Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and yes, you should have one of those, but that is not going to be your marketing strategy. It doesn't hurt, and you should have one, but that will be 3 to 5% of your marketing, probably at best. You need to have it. It's kind of like having a business card. You got to have one, but it's not going to be how you're going to do your best marketing. Website, same thing. You've got to have one. It's got to be good. Only in this case, a website is a whole lot more important, I think. When Realtor Joe sells a house to home buyers A and B, he's going to say, okay, home buyers A and B, I have this inspector who's awesome. Here's his card, call him. You got the perfect setup for them calling you. You don't have to make a sale. They're just going to say, I need to make an order. And you go down the road of, okay, what day and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do a sales pitch. Realtor Joe says, okay, buyers A and B, I want you to call this inspector. Buyers A and B, usually before they do, they're going to check your website. And if it sucks or if it doesn't exist, you just lost. So you've got to have a website, and it's got to not suck. Okay, got to have that. Highlight in your marketing materials, you're going to want to highlight the differences between you and other inspectors. One of the things that I don't care for is businesses named 500-point inspections or 1,000-point inspections or 10 million-point inspections. It's dumb. The whole concept is that you are going to do the most thorough inspection known to man. You're going to do the same kind of inspection for every client that you would do if your client was your sister. You're going to leave no effort unturned so that they know that you did the very best job for them that you could do, and then you've got their referral. So, whatever your differences are, maybe you do a guarantee, maybe you highlight your technical background, maybe you say clients welcome, and by the way, if you're on my team, you do have, that's required. You've got to have your clients at the inspection. It helps for 1,000 reasons. If you want to be on my team, that's not negotiable. I require that. So that's something that you can do to make yourself different. Again, you've got to convince a realtor why they should choose you over the 24 other choices that they certainly have. You can talk about how you maybe saved the deal. Maybe you can talk about your hazmat background, which stands for hazardous materials. You can talk about your customer service. The thing is with customer service is everybody claims they've got customer service. So, if you're going to make that claim, you better be able to explain clearly and in a different way why yours is unique or different or special. So whatever your differences are, you got to make those clear so they understand why you're not just the 12th home inspector in line to try and get their business. Got to be unique. Now, again, once you've got them, make sure you serve well enough so that you know that your buyer, who got referred to you as a matter of trust, now becomes a fan of you and your business. And if at the end of the inspection they don't look you square in the face and sincerely thank you for having done that job, regardless of the size of the check that they wrote to you, your thank you is not the check. It is them looking in your eyes and saying, thank you, that was awesome, I'm so glad we found you. Those sorts of words. If they don't do that, you failed. And you lost an opportunity to gain a client that could be worth, as we mentioned at the beginning, $100,000. It's a whole lot different to understand that this client in front of you might not be worth, you go in thinking, okay, this is a $400 gig. I've already got the money just by going through the motions for the next 2 hours. Or you could think, I could really do a good job, and this client here might be worth $100,000. And if you understand that, and then you can do the self-check at the very end. If they are not extremely grateful, if they don't say, I'm going to make sure I refer you to everybody I know, and if you don't believe that they're going to go to that realtor who referred them to you and say, that guy was awesome, thank you. If you don't get that, you failed, and you've got to work harder the next time. So that's huge. That's probably the one thing I need you to understand as a result of doing the training with me. Give realtors a reason to bet on you. We've talked about that. We've talked about how to get the first one in a brokerage. We've talked about how to expand that to the entire brokerage. But you got to look at it from their eyes. They just made a sale of a house. They're planning on the money from this sale to pay their grocery bills, their house payment, their child's soccer. And if you screw this deal up, especially if you screw it up for stupid reasons, you just lost yourself a career in that person's eyes and everybody else who is in their circle. Don't do that. Have and use certifications. So you're going to want to get, there's ASHI, there's NACHI, there's other home inspector certifications out there. You want to get at least one of those. And you can also use mine. You can, once you've completed these courses and gone through, you can use the Home Medic Certified, and that will help you as well to help realtors understand why you are different, why you're better, why you're special, why they want to bet their monthly paycheck on you. Okay, next segment we're going to talk about marketing materials and what those should look like. Be right back.